Well, hello. Welcome to Build Back Better. I'm Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, and our topic this week is education and family assistance. And it's pretty clear what that means from the title, I think, but I just want to introduce what we're going to talk about, and we've got a great panel of 6 people who I will introduce as we go. Who will talk about these issues. And then if you're watching on Facebook, you're welcome and encouraged to put comments and questions in there. Hopefully we'll get to some of those. But I know that our panel has a lot to say, and I think it's going to get kind of interesting because we've got some very outspoken advocates here, and we've got some people who are in positions to deliver some of what these advocates are looking for. And all of us are here because we want to serve the families that are impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, by the economic impacts of that, by the closure of our schools. And I just want to say that it's a incredible time, incredibly difficult time for families when you think about the fact that kids are at home, that a lot of people have lost income, have lost jobs. Some people can't work because their kids are at home. Child care centers were closed by the governor to all except essential employees of essential businesses, and then have been gradually reopened, but there's a real problem with getting child care right now. Because of the limits on numbers in child care centers. And so that's got to be figured out. But we do have some good work going on. And the school system has done, I think most people know, over 1 million meals at this point to kids that are distributed at a number of sites, I think over 60 sites around the county. As well as provided 10,000 Chromebooks, or probably more than that at this point, laptops, for kids to be able to try to access the educational offerings of the school system. And some families do not have internet access. Some families do not have enough computers to provide to the kids that are trying to access this online education. Teachers are struggling with trying to change the way that they teach and connect to students, and it's a really difficult time. I have heard from a lot of folks about gaps that are not being filled, and so in county government, which is separate from the school system, and that we have a separate oversight. We have the school board in the state, and we have our county council and the county executive. Funding comes from the county to the school board, most of the funding, but we try to collaborate. And so one of the things that we did just recently is start a family assistance collaboration between the school system and the county. And we've got people who are working on that are going to talk about some of that. But there are programs that the county is doing as well, separate from what the school system does. And that includes a lot of food distribution. There's a map at aacounty.org when you click on coronavirus now that shows around the county all of the sites for food distribution from the school system, from the Department of Aging and Disabilities to seniors, as well as distribution sites that are available to everybody. There are also links to other programs that we're doing. We have Kay Bodgester Brown here with us, who does all of our health and human services work for the county, and is coordinating the bulk of our coronavirus response through these programs, and has created the eviction prevention program and has some others in the works. So we're going to be talking about things the county's doing, things the school system's doing, and how we can do a better job of filling the gaps that aren't being met by state and federal programs for the families who need it. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with our youngest panelist, whose name is Drake Smith, and Drake is the president of the NAAP Youth and College Division, I guess it's called, for Anne Arundel County, and was on last night on the town hall that we did. with a group of young African-American leaders talking about this moment that we're in. And it was an incredible evening last night. So much wisdom coming from young people about this moment we're in that seems so terrible, but actually there were a lot of positive ideas coming into that and proposals. So hopefully we're going to get good ideas tonight. So let's start with Drake, who is also starting July 1st going to be a member of our Anne Arundel County School Board. He's the student representative, was elected just recently. So Drake, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us as a student how this school closure and coronavirus pandemic has changed changed life for you and your peers.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Like you said, I'm president of the Anne Arundel County NAACP Youth and College Division, and just recently elected to be the next student member of the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. And my term starts July 1st. And I'm also I'm a junior at Meade High School. So the coronavirus really it changed everything in aspects of learning and how students learn, how students interact with each other and their teachers. Right now, we're engaging in online learning, which is great, but it can never fill that void that the real classroom setting will fill for a number of reasons. One, at home, students have a number of distractions around them. Some of them are nice distractions, like Netflix, Hulu, the TV. But then some students have, not really distractions, but stuff that hinders their learning, like violence at the household, or they don't come from a nice family situation. And also teachers, they can't really pick up on that through the computer screen. Normally, when a student comes in who's been abused, they come in with maybe noticeable remarks, or you can noticeable marks, or you can see that they have really changed. Their demeanor has changed in class. Maybe they're less bubbly. But if your student is not showing up for the Google Meets you have, you can't really tell that. Or if your student is just typing stuff, you can't tell through the text. So we just want to make sure that can try to recognize this, through the COVID-19. This can be a very hard task, but really we can all do it. It's not just on the teachers or the administrations. It also can be on us, the neighbors. Where if you know that maybe you have a neighbor who, or you have a neighbor not with a history of violence at the home, or just a neighbor that have younger children, tough for everybody. So maybe just check in on them. And we also want to make sure that students are healthy mentally, because normally you can tell, like with abuse, if a student is maybe going through depression or something else like that. You can tell by the changed demeanor. But once again, you can't tell that through the Zoom or the Google Classroom. So we just want to make sure that we really reach out to the students and the parents as well, just to make sure everybody's, not just healthy physically, but also healthy mentally.
Those are good. Those are good comments. You've covered a lot of the things that we've been talking about in these weeks, especially the mental health aspects. And I was just looking through statistics of our county warm line that people can call, and the numbers are sky high. People are calling in, and they should be calling in. And actually, we should post that phone number on the comments section. I don't have it right in front of me, so people know about that resource. But we're going to get back to you, Drake. Let's move on now to Russell Leone, who is the president of the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, teacher himself. And tell us how life has changed for teachers, Russell.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, Stuart, for inviting me to be part of this great panel. So as you can all imagine, everything just changed overnight, and teachers are really masters of building on relationships, like Drake touched on. And this format has taken a lot of that away. And so teachers really did have to shift how they are reaching kids and how they're really presenting the information that they're teaching. But one thing that people also really, I think, are realizing in this setting is how much teachers aren't just teachers of academics, teachers of really the whole kid. And our teachers, from the first day of closings, really went into overdrive to touch base with their families, make sure kids were doing great. I mean, people were sharing with me messages they were sending to their classrooms, and it wasn't about, hey, get this work done. It was, hey, take care of yourself. We know there's a lot going on. They address the whole issues of how scary this time could be for a lot of people, and even share their own experiences with that, and how they had some uncertainty in the situation. So the other thing that I think is really important too is we have to recognize that you mentioned them, Stuart, the gaps that are starting to be created during this time. And so teachers are going to have to, and have already started to, but they're going to have to, especially when school starts up in the fall, really have to look at where some of those gaps in the learning have been. And so we're really going to have to look at what curriculum looks like in the following year, because what you start off, I was a fourth grade teacher most recently, and what I would start off in the fourth grade year with is not going to be necessarily what I can start off this, this next school year, because there are pieces of what the third graders I would have expected them to have learned and experienced that they've lost some of that. So we really have to take care of that. I don't know if you want me to get into some of the technology piece now or wait a little bit.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about the technology?
Yeah, because with technology, and of course, technology being a concern, making sure it's in the hands of every kid, but there's two sides of it too. It's also with the teachers as well. Right now, with the technology, many of our teachers are using their own devices. So teachers that have access to laptops versus access to working off of an iPad, they're going to have different capabilities to what they can do with their classes. Plus, when you factor in the teacher have their own kids who are students and they have to share devices, so there's that impact there too. So their own kids aren't necessarily able to touch base into their own classes while that teacher has to take care of their own class during that time. So those are a few things that have really impacted teachers and what they can do. But the biggest thing I think has been the relationships. And I'll tell you, the teachers, and it's not even just the teachers and the education support professionals, our teaching assistants, our cafeteria workers, our guidance counselors, they've all, I call them guidance counselors, sorry, school counselors, they've all just really stepped in and are supporting each other in just some fantastic ways.
Yeah, they're having to be creative. My own sister is a teacher at Annapolis High School, and she's trying to figure it out along with everybody else. She did say that while there's some kids that she can't even find and connect with, which of course is kind of terrifying, that there are others who are actually engaging more and seem to be really comfortable operating this way. Have you heard
Right.
of that?
And actually, I have heard that from teachers. They've shared with me that some of the kids that are in their class that either were really quiet or really not as engaged, they've really stepped up and shined in this format. This really
Yeah.
spoke to them. And I think that's the other thing, that as we move forward, even as we get our kids back together, we should be looking at how are we going to use this as a good learning experience, to use some of this technology more in our classrooms to help continue to reach those kids that have really flourished during this time.
Okay, so let's move on to now, since we're on technology, especially um, Jess Packler, or is it Patchler or Packler?
It's Packler. Like
Packler. Okay. I thought I was second guessing myself there. Who is a mom, got kids at both Eastport Elementary and Annapolis Middle School, and is also on the Annapolis Education Commission, which advises the school system as well as the state, and has been very active in the community as a mom, but also as an advocate. And tell us what you've been working on, Jesse.
So thank you for having me tonight. And I have been very active. I'm fortunate to have 3 kids that are at Eastport Elementary and a 7th grader that's at Annapolis Middle School, all boys. So this has been a very interesting last few months for a full-time working mom with 4 children ranging from kindergarten to 7th grade, at 4 boys ranging from kindergarten to 7th grade at home. I first of all, I just want to say and follow up to what Russell was saying, the teachers have been doing such an amazing job. I am so grateful every minute for what the teachers at Eastport, the teachers and the staff and the principals at Eastport and Annapolis Middle have been doing, because they have taken on this challenge and just done everything they can to get their students online, to get the students connected, to do whatever is in their power to keep learning going, to keep it interesting, and to keep the kids learning. But obviously, so I'm in the Annapolis cluster, and I'm on the Annapolis Education Commission, and Annapolis has, within Anne Arundel County, a lot of its own challenges that you don't necessarily see in such a concentration elsewhere. And the last 3 months throughout this whole process have really shown a light on those issues. And one of the things that I've been particularly focused on, there's a lot of different things, but particularly has been the technology access. As we know, the school system's motto is to elevate all students and eliminate all gaps. And we have and the technology access issue throughout this whole period has been really, I think, accentuating those gaps and extending them. And I'm really concerned also about what it's going to be like coming back to school next year, and the kids who are already in the opportunity gap, how much larger that gap is going to be. We have been working really hard on trying to make sure that every student who, I strongly believe that every student who needs a Chromebook should be able to get one. When we first started this, the sort of line was, or the thought was, that as long as you had a device, you could access the online learning. And as we've gotten into it, that has shown not to be the case. Even if you have an iPad, you can't access Google Classrooms and the various resources in the same way that you can from a Chromebook, from a PC computer. And that makes it difficult, because you have kids that are accessing, and some kids can access this program and they do it this way. Some kids do it this way. And so the teachers are having to, try to negotiate all of that in addition to trying to get the kids online. And in particularly in the Annapolis cluster, and I know this is also an issue down in South County as well, is internet access, because you can't access the e-learning if you don't have adequate internet access. And I know that in some counties, when the schools closed, in addition to handing out Chromebooks, they also handed out Wi-Fi hotspots. And that really did a lot to get kids online right away, and teachers, because not all teachers have great internet access at home. That is not something that we've done here in the county, and it is really something I think we need to look at. No matter what the fall looks like, there's clearly going to be some aspect of at-home learning and over the summer as well. So our PTA at Eastport Elementary, after asking the school system multiple times to try to come up with a solution that doesn't involve a parental hotspot, because parental hotspots from their phones, parental phone hotspots, they're not strong enough to access, to provide the resources that Google Classroom takes. You just can't get enough access, quick enough access for the programs on Google Classroom and in the ClassLink program. But our PTA is actually purchasing Wi-Fi hotspots, but we're fortunate to be able to do that. Many PTAs can't, and it should, that's an integral part of learning. If we're doing e-learning and the kids can't have adequate access to the internet, then they're not going to be able to participate in the e-learning. And so that's something that I have been working really hard on, and we've discussed in the last Annapolis Education Commission meeting, and put forth a request that something be done, because again, if we're not connecting these kids, then we're losing these, and it's hard enough when the kids are at home and you have parents that are working, and you have parents, whether they're working in the house or out of the house. One of the options that was given was parents could drive the students to the school and they could work in the school. Well, if you have an essential parent, if you're a family that doesn't have internet access at home, it's more likely that you're a family whose parents have low paying or lower jobs, and they tend to be people who are on the front line. They're the essential workers. They're in the grocery stores or in the hospitals and in the restaurants. And so they can't take their kids to the school and sit in the parking lot and access that internet. And the internet there isn't very strong either. And so those are the things that we've really been working on and that I've been working on and trying to support our school staff and our principals in connecting with these students, because the other issue is that if our school staff and our principal are spending a lot of their time trying to get students connected, then that's taking away from the time that they have to teach the students who are connected. And that's another really important thing. So, and a lot of schools just have the parent resources or the parent availability to try to do that, and it shouldn't fall on the shoulders of the parents or on the teachers and the teachers either. There should be a system within the school system to work on this access and to work on getting these kids in place and making sure that kids are connecting, and so that the teachers and the staff can focus on the core education, which is hard enough during this e-learning time. So that's
what okay, yeah, I mean, you're laying it all out there, and for those who think, oh well, the money's not there, we can't do this, I just want everybody to know that the school system is Anne Arundel County Public School System has an allocation of $11 million from the CARES Act, the federal coronavirus response funding. And while that money's not yet in hand, and there's an application process for that, I know that they're maybe they've already put their plan together, or they're putting the plan together, and a lot of that money is for technology. So the things that you're asking for, I know that they can be paid from that fund. The county also has coronavirus response money to use on a broader range of issues as well. So we're lucky that Congress passed that funding, and we just have to use it wisely, and recognize that the people who are getting impacted by this, I don't think everybody quite understands that the actual virus has a higher impact African Americans by 50%, and then on Hispanics by 3 to 4 times as much. And part of the reason for that is where people live and whether they're able to be spaced out, or whether they have to go to work and the risk of the virus. And then the economic impact, of course, is on people who are in low-wage service sector jobs, period. Those are the folks who are being hurt the most. So we know the families that we really need to serve in this, and we have to target them and identify them. So that was a good intro on the technology part. We'll get back to you, Jess, because I want to jump over to Burl Downs, who is going to talk about particularly the food distribution side of all of this, as well as whatever else you want to talk about, Burl. But Burl is kind of everywhere. Burl works for Delegate Shanika Henson as a constituent representative or service representative, and works at the Stanton Center in the Clay Street neighborhood as well. Coordinator of the STAIR reading program, and the Greater Pearl Community Association. And I know there's even more than that, but Pearl, why don't you give us an outline of what you've been working on?
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the call tonight and to share. I've shared before and I'll share again. I think I echo what everybody is saying about the teachers and the counselors and all of the people who work for the school system and the county as well. I think everybody is working hard to help and do and to serve. And I think that's wonderful. I don't think there's a lack of resources. It's just putting the resources where the people are and where the people need the resources. When you mention food, there's food at a lot of the schools, but getting the kids to the food and getting the food to the kids has been our problem. We are elementary school, Annapolis Elementary School, and those kids were told to go to Bates. Well, they can't go to Bates by themselves, and the parents can't get the food without the kid without the child. So we've asked that a mobile site be put at Whitmore Park where kids can walk and parents who don't have transportation can get there. So problem, solution. The other thing that we've asked about is for children who have IEPs, that there be some special training for their parents to help them with the e-learning because they're getting that special attention in school. And again, I shared earlier about a situation. It's not always the message that we give, it's the messenger. So if you are a grandparent or great grandparent responsible for your children, I had a situation where they didn't know what a Chromebook was. They thought it was just a school supply, did not understand that it was the computer that the child needed for learning. So the message and the messenger is important. We talked another time about community ambassadors. I hope some of the $11 million not just goes for technology, which is very, very, very important, but to have boots on the ground, the right messengers on the ground, helping people, helping these students. I think that would be very, very important. So again, I will be happy to stay on the call and answer questions, but I'm not sure, Mr. County Executive, that our problem is the lack of resources. I think it's connecting the proper resources to the people, getting the people to the resources. I think that is something that we must do. Another example I want to bring up is the families that are quarantined. I am involved with a group of women that take food daily to quarantine families. We shouldn't have to do that. Once you've tested positive and the health department is tracking you, resources should follow those families. Resources should follow those families, but that's not the case if we're delivering food. We've been told by the school system that we cannot, nor can a health department personnel pick up food and deliver it to those families. You're never going to convince me why that can't be done, because we're doing it and they should be able to do it. If a student is in school, they would be at school. Now, I would like to know what they're doing with that food. I think it's a wasted resource. Now, we put a Band-Aid on that problem in the Clay Street area, and I want to emphasize Band-Aid. We have the Maryland Food Bank dropping off 100, I think it's 150 meals a day. They're already burdened. But 2 miles, 3 miles down the road is the bait site that is not serving nearly enough kids, but they have the food. So again, the resources are there, but it's just matching them with the right people. So I just think we have to be wise with how we handle our resources.
Okay. And I'm going to get to you, Jess, because I saw your comment. I hope our other panelists are taking notes, because we're going to get back to some of these proposals and talk about how they might be implemented. But I know Jess had an area of this that she wanted to mention as well. Folks who don't speak English.
Yes, and I wanted to say yes to everything that Beryl said as well, because that is what we were dealing with over on this side as well, and I think across the cluster. But the families, our Hispanic families in particular, the access to education has been really difficult for a number of reasons, starting with lack of access of Chromebooks and Wi-Fi, but also because the majority of the learning materials that are provided are not provided with a Spanish translation. And especially for our younger children, where they haven't already learned enough English in class, or more newly immigrated families where the children don't know English or have older siblings that might be able to translate for them. All of the learning instruction material comes in Spanish, and comes in English, and isn't coming in Spanish. So even if the kids are expected to do the work in English like they are in the classroom, parents, I know as a parent of a kindergartner and a second grader, there's a lot of hands-on work that we need to do to explain what they need to do and to help them move through the things. And if it's not being provided in Spanish as well as English, if the videos aren't in Spanish as well as English, then those parents aren't able to support their children with their learning. So it makes everything that much harder. And we certainly don't have enough bilingual translators in our system as it is. And as Beryl was saying, it's boots on the ground. We really, first of all, everything that comes out in English needs to also come out in Spanish. And then we need to figure out how we can better support those English language learners families so that they can connect fully and really move forward.
Okay, all right. Laying it down. And you know, on a couple of these issues, I do keep in touch with the county executives and other Central Maryland counties and compare notes. And there are things that are being done differently that we can learn from. I mean, you mentioned Montgomery County doing the hot spots for the kids. Frederick County actually already has provided, before all of this, provided a Chromebook to every student at the beginning of the year, so that that wasn't an issue there, because it was a system that was in place already. And then I know that many counties do not have a requirement that the child be there to pick up every meal. Okay, that it's possible for a parent to go get the meals, and I know that there have been a number of parents who've been unable to herd their children to the school every day, especially when they don't have a vehicle to do it in, and pick up all the meals and bring them all home again. So I know all of those are issues that we want to look at. So our next three panelists, two work for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. One works me for in our office, and the three of them have been working together just for a few weeks, just getting started on what we're calling this family assistance collaboration to ensure that things like the question about, well, there's food at the schools, why can't it be delivered? Well, the county has people who are delivering meals, the school is providing meals, maybe there's ways of making that happen. Both the county and the school system have a pot of CARES Act funding that we can direct to these things. So let's just get it together and get it done, right? Our next speaker is Dr. Sean Ashworth, who I guess has just about done everything that you can do in the world of education. She's a PhD. She has been a principal. She has been in school administration, and I guess you said that you are once a counselor, always a counselor. So, and runs the Office of Safe and Orderly Schools.
I don't run it.
Oh, you don't run it? Okay.
I don't run it. I just work in there.
Okay, the Office of Safe and Orderly Schools. All right, all right. And they put you wherever the problems are to solve them. So could you please solve these problems for us, Dr. Ashworth?
I don't know that I can do it alone, but it is the collaboration with your office, county exec and Anne Arundel County Public Schools, that we could work to get this done. And that's what the school system has done. We are in collaboration with a variety, many different organizations and businesses in the county and outside the county who are coming together to collectively address a lot of what Ms. Downs has spoken about, Ms. Patchell has spoken about. And I have to tell you, and yes, our teachers and our administrators are doing an awesome job. A part of my job, one of my tasks is I support schools in building culture, just, all kinds of things. I've had the opportunity since COVID to sit in on some of our schools' leadership meetings. And I have to tell you that our principals, our behavior support teams, our student support service teams, they have a pulse on what's happening with their families. Weekly, if not daily, they are providing numbers to our top leadership on the number of kids and families who are not connected, and working real hard virtually in the trenches to address. For example, when we first started giving out Chromebooks, because that and food seems to be a hot topic, Meade High School, North County High School, Annapolis High, all of those high schools were well over 400 students who needed access to Chromebooks. And I'm happy to say, especially with Meade High went from over 400 to only now needing 13 of their families in a large school like Meade High School who is still not connected. And as mentioned, we have a pulse. I believe we have a pulse and have done deep to figure out. We've gone from 8,400 families not connected to now down to about 700. And that number is even broken down to those families of why they're not connected. And Jessica talked about our South County families. Well, they're not connected because Comcast and Verizon are not connected down there. But the school system is in conversation and collaboration with those entities to loosen the bureaucracy or the barriers of getting those families corrected. And we are, as you mentioned, Mr. Pittman, the CARES money and Anne Arundel County Public Schools is in collaboration and planning now. Every department across the county is currently planning for how to spend that money strategically and how to make sure that all of our families, as you said, Jessica, all means all. And so departments are planning for all kids to have access to our food services as well as our technology. So we're doing it, and I'm glad that this collaboration with the county executive office has formed because this provides an opportunity for our families to get connected directly to county offices and businesses and support systems, probably in a quicker way than they would if not. So thank you so much for collaborating with the school system.
So, okay, we'll get back to this little conversation going here. We'll get an opportunity for people to talk to each other too. So we have Laura Jones here as well from Anne Arundel County Public Schools. 16 years in the field and 6 years with the county public schools, who oversees the whole crew of PPWs, the pupil personnel workers. Can you tell us what they do and how that works and how you can solve all these problems for us?
Sure. I wish I could solve all the problems. Then I could probably be a multimillionaire because I would sell it to everybody. But PPWs really, our main goal is we have an arch. So advocacy, attendance, residency, custody, housing. And the housing piece is really our homeless families, our hardship families, our students who are in foster care, and our students who have some difficulty enrolling in school, like our students who come through the International Welcome Center, or undocumented students. So PPWs work with all of those families. So we work to really reduce the barriers for school enrollment for families. So our people really work with a lot of those disenfranchised families. So when it came down time to get those families those Chromebooks and make sure that those families had the resources, our people were the ones calling all of our homeless families, calling all of our kinship hardship families, making sure, that if they needed the resource, they had the resource available to them. If they couldn't get there, we were coordinating transportation for our homeless families to get to a site, to get a device. And so we're the people that were doing that job. And so when I was asked to be on this on this committee with Dr. Ashworth, I was excited to do so because this is right up our alley. We want to reduce the barriers and get access and get resources for our families. We are the get it done, and so that's what we try to do. We have some great community partnerships, and when we work together to get our families, those things, I do want to mention we've been talking about community ambassadors, but we do have two really great other positions that are grant funded through the Kerwin Commission. The community school program managers, there's one at Tyler Heights and at Mills Parole, and they're grant funded, but the one, Miss Sarah Daniels that's at Tyler Heights, she's been doing a food pop-up pantry on Saturdays at Tyler Heights with Love ACO and through the partnership. And so that's another great resource that's been happening, that has been given a lot of, food and resources to the families in the community. So, we've been, we have a survey going out to a lot of our kinship hardship families. Our hardship families are the families that are really our undocumented families that are enrolled in the school system. And so we want to know what those resources are that they need, because they're not always reaching out to ask for help. And so we need to know what it is that they need. And really, as I believe Ms. Patchler said, get those people resources through people that they trust. And they can talk to, because that's really the barrier for them. They don't trust everyone to actually have that conversation about what they need. And so through our bilingual facilitators and with our PPWs and with our school social workers, our school counselors, they're able to then talk with us. We can get them the resources. We have great community partnerships. We have great community relationships with people to get them the resources that they need.
I'm glad you mentioned about the community schools program, and it's just Mills Pearl and Taylor Heights now, but it's going to increase this year. Is it going to be 10 or schools in the county? Close to that, I know. And then it's going to continue to increase, we hope. That's one of the Kerwin recommendations, and something that had already gotten started, so that those schools all have a community coordinator and a health coordinator as well, working with families. And that unfortunately, it's not in place in enough places to really help us through this crisis. But it sure would have been great if we had, because each of them then does their community needs assessment in the area. And if you think about it, there's not a better institution in a neighborhood that really can serve the community than a school. And we have schools all over the county. And so it's about time that we started using the schools as a way to reach families and make these things happen. So, but the community ambassadors, there are how many? It's a small program, right?
Yes, I'm not sure of the total number, but currently they exist in North County High School, Glen Burnie, Chesapeake High School, Annapolis High. And so I believe they come out of our equity office, and there is a need for more. We're in need for some money to support the need for more community ambassadors. I'm exec.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Kay is writing that down right now. Let's put that into the next request. Okay. Good. So, and let's get to Dr. Kay Bodges-Brown, who is oversees all the health and human services departments of county government, and has been putting together our plan for our CARES Act money on our side, and has started to work with you. So tell us how we can move forward, please, Kay.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. We've got our work cut out for us. All of our panelists have laid out what some of the challenges are. Let me just tell you, the Family Assistance Collaboration members, Lori and Sean, are awesome. They are one of the highlights of my week. Their enthusiasm and energy seriously is contagious, and I feel like we can take over the world. So the Mr. County Executive came up with the idea that we should have a collaboration. I brought some challenges and said, look, we have these things that continue to come.
Let me just remind you, it wasn't my idea, it was yours, but thank you for giving me credit for it.
So that's very true. I did bring it, look, we need to work together and, help the school system and bring our solutions to the table. And Mr. Pittman said, yes, we should. Let's have a collaboration. Let's do this. So it was a team process. So anyway, we had identified some obstacles. We knew that we needed to not just say school system is a problem. We need to say there are problems. This is a challenge, and we need to partner to get through it and work to bring all of the resources to the table to resolve it. And that was my commitment to this. When we were matched, we had our first couple of meetings, and all of us were in alignment in terms of how we saw some of the challenges. And we got busy setting our priorities. And it's probably not, surprising that school meal distribution and leftover meals is one of our challenges. Connecting families in needs with appropriate services during this more difficult time. And then, of course, the electronic devices and internet connectivity. And our challenge is really to figure out what is the barrier, research it, and figure out how do we wrap those services and those resources around it in a way that uses the resources differently than we might have done out in normal times. We, as an example, for the leftover meals, one of the things that we started talking about first, we know there's a waiver, so we're working with our school administrators on taking a look at that. They haven't got back to us yet, but I know that they're considering it. But at the same time that that's happening, what I did is I took some of the challenges back to some of the groups that we have that are a part of the emergency response that the county is leading. And I took it to the food access and distribution team and said, look, we've got this challenge with getting these meals that might be left over and figuring out what can we do with those. And my team on that work group was all over it. They had all kinds of ideas. And we are also partnering with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, and they had ideas on what other counties are doing. So they're bringing their plans forth from these other jurisdictions and bringing them to us so that we can take a look at them and figure out who do we get to help us move meals. Once we get the go-ahead, take those meals and redistribute them to families either that have parents that are working, taking them to some of the other pantries that are servicing families, because we know that there's kind of a shelf life for this food, that it has to be used within a certain time frame. And then also serving some of our other vulnerable populations. So we know we have individuals that are unsheltered or homeless and they have children. We know that we have seniors and we have grandparents that maybe are caring for children. So we have this issue. We know that we can take this food and use it differently. So now we have to just get all of our volunteers, which we have a number of them that we feel like we can call upon to help us start this as a stopgap measure, and then begin to look at how we execute in a different kind of way so it's sustainable. We know we can't use volunteers forever. So we have to figure out what is that mechanism that we can use to move the food around and have that done in a daily way and matched with other community members or other community residents that are in the area of the school, so that we know that it's staying in a similar area of the county. So this is really exciting to us. And I think that there's a lot of energy around it. I know that there are other things that are going to come up. The last meeting we had, we started talking about some of the summer programming and how we could work together to help programs that may be considering virtual programming and develop a mechanism for those programs to come together and share ideas on, how they're going to do this type of programming and learn from one another, because this is all a new world for many people. So those are a couple examples of what it is that we've been talking about, and I'm really excited to execute it and be able to come back with a win. And I know that Lori and Sean are going to help us do that with the schools.
Okay, Burl, I'm going to put you on the spot. Burl, I had a call, maybe it's been a few weeks ago, a month ago, with Burl and Jessica and some others. Burl said, we met about this and nothing got done. And, I'm willing to be on this thing, but I don't want to waste my time. I've been on a lot of calls, a lot of meetings, and, I just don't want to do this if nothing's going to happen. So now's your chance. What do you think about what you've heard? And do you want to put anybody on the spot?
Well, thank you for sharing that. I did reach out to the county executive this afternoon and I said, I'm just not going to do it. I mean, I came to you, you said good, you went, you got a no, and I just think that you can't get a no. Don't take a no. So excited that we're looking for ways to collaborate, but in the meantime, their kids, Drake mentioned about kids, they're kids that are introverts, and so this works for them. They're kids that are extroverts that are having some challenges. But again, I think that the kids that were doing okay, getting breakfast, getting meals, having parents sit with them, and they're doing okay in school, those kids are going to be okay. It is the kids that we know that don't have that type of support that Laurie has mentioned, that Sean has mentioned, that, you know, those are the kids that I see on a daily basis in various areas that are going to slip through the cracks. The STAIR program, as many of you know, is a program that's second grade readers, second readers in second grade that are reading below grade level. So they've already come in, they're behind. Without mentioning names, I have about 3 students in second grade that are reading below the kindergarten level. So we are trying to work with them, and for them to not have that service. And I've said to the STAIR board, tutoring as you know it is over. The population that our biggest population of tutors are the challenged population, the older people, which I'm about to be one. But so how are you going to reinvent yourself? What are you going to do? So we're looking at ways to do that. But I think that there's got to be a way to move the resource, the food, the Chromebooks, the money. There's got to be a way to move these things to the people. And I know we've got boots on the ground. I know that the schools are reaching out. Sean, I'm so glad to hear that 8,400 number is down to 700, but that's still 700 kids that are truant. That's still 700 kids that are truant. And that's the word that I use in the Parole Community Association. That's kids that are not going to school. That's acceptable. That's unacceptable when, and I have to tell you, in the Clay Street area, if you're making them go to school, there's somebody else pulling for their attention. There's somebody pulling for their attention. So we really got to wrap our minds around. The one thing that I wanted to talk about too, and thank you for the opportunity, the mobile trucks. I didn't want to move a mobile truck. I just wanted to have some extra food and go to a second site. So maybe we can look at that, because in the Annapolis area, and Jess, you may have this same thing. We have one at the Jewish on Hilltop. We've got Admiral Farragut, and then so there were 3 right there together. So if we could move one, if 100 meals could go on, extra 100 meals go on a truck, and that truck at the end of at 12:30, from 12:30 to 1 could go to Whitmore Park. So it's not a strain on the Maryland Food Bank. It's just moving the resources to the people who need it. And again, we've got community people that would make sure that the kids get the food, they'd be safe at Whitmore Park. County executive, you could look out your window and make sure that they're safe because it's right there. But again, just being creative. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We really don't. We just want to be creative in the solutions. So yeah. I'm giving it another try because you asked me to, but I do want to say publicly, I owe Vincent Molden in your office an apology because I was not nice on the phone when you told me no. So I know that everybody's working hard, but it's very frustrating when I see kids at Stanton Center, which has been closed, with their little faces pressed up against the window, wanting to get in because they just need help.
Yeah.
And so I just think we've got to be creative. We have resources. Let's be creative in how we use them.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we're on to something with getting some of these volunteers and some of these county employees and county departments engaged in the distribution system and helping out. One
more thing before I give up my time. There are a lot of churches. I've been working with the Center of Help out at Allen's Apartments and the Parole Community Association. We've been doing our sweat equity out there every weekend with the food distribution. It mirrors what they're doing at Tyler Heights. I've been working with Pastor Menendez, and our group has been working with her because you need volunteers. my office had an email today from the downtown Hope Church. It's on West Street. They have a ton of volunteers. They just want to know. And everywhere they go, they've been told, "Oh, we have enough people." And I said, "Just hold on. I'm going to get you with the right people." So Downtown Hope is one of the churches that really wants to help. They have a ton of volunteers. So if we just need hands, we've got them.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people that want to help and are helping, volunteering during this time.
Can I just make a statement about the truancy part?
Mhm.
So I do want to just make a comment about that because we also with truancy, and I do want to say one thing. Some of our kids who have been involved in truancy court and have had some issues and are already through the court process have actually been more engaged in e-learning now that this has been an option since it started. And we go back to court, hopefully, now that things are opening back up in July. So those families that we were supposed to be in court, in March, April, May, I believe we now have been reset to July. So we'll start going back again in July. So we'll see those families again, but our PPWs have been keeping up with those families that have been in court, we've been in court with. And we've been checking to see if they've been engaged in their e-learning process, and some of them have. And these are kids who've missed, 80 days, 70 days, 60 days prior to this pandemic. So the kids that are missing school right now, we need to get the parents involved in getting them involved if that's an option right now, or seeing what the barrier is to having them involved in the e-learning process. And I think that's what that 700 is. So, the teachers are calling, the counselors are calling, my people are calling. We're trying to track them down. But we need the other supports too to kind of get them on board to say, hey, we need to get them involved. But as far as holding parents accountable and to the e-learning process so that kids are more engaged, we've been doing our part. We need help from the other side too. But the ones who have already been involved in the truancy process, some of them have really taken to this e-learning platform. So I just wanted to mention that.
I'm gonna let.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, we say these are an hour, we can run a little bit over, but we're coming up on an hour. I want to give each of you a chance to say one more thing, anything. But before I do that, I'm going to read through some questions that have come in. And some of them are questions, but they're really ideas too. And we don't need to answer them all, but as you make your closing statement, if there's something that you really want to address that's in here, you can write it down and do that. So Beth says, speaking of unforeseen challenges, emotional and abuse-related issues will be huge post-COVID. Is there talk about supporting our school counseling programs? Additional school counselors that are in the budget. We keep adding them every year because we know how important that is. But when we had our town hall on the mental health aspects of this, we were advised by Dr. George Everly that it really is, as we come out of a crisis, that's when actually things sometimes are worse. Has the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Foundation raised funds for Chromebooks and Wi-Fi access? Good question. Sean is nodding her head. And it is on mute, but okay, we'll get to that in a minute. About the foundation itself. The Anne Arundel Community Foundation is also raising funds in general for coronavirus work. And of course, we have the CARES Act money. How can people volunteer to help? Great question. Always love that one. What are we doing for children who cannot learn from a screen? That's from Robert. The last one was from Carlessa. Can the county partner with companies to deliver food like restaurant food trucks or DoorDash or Uber Eats? I'm sure Case thought of that one and might have something to say. Comment on e-learning. Teachers should be doing Google Meets with students, and that and that could truly benefit those students that don't learn from a screen. That was from Celine. Devin says, do we know the statistic of how frequently or infrequently these students are logged on or not? That's a really good question. I know it's been asked at the school board. Comment on school reopening. How about giving options? Have the teachers that may be more at risk teach distant learning, and families can choose to continue distance learning, and those of us that want them in school as normal can go back. Survey the parents and ask them. That's from Renee. There's a lot of discussion about reopening, I know. Another comment on reopening from Jessica. This is the last one. Thanks for everyone's hard work. We're hoping for optional e-learning continuation through the winter out of concern for COVID-19. So we hope access to internet will be available for all. But if schools will be open, packets could also be made available for pickups. And also much smaller scale classes for students with special needs and those with compromised immune systems. And the issue that we haven't even touched on is this summer. And what kind of activities are going to be available. And I know we're working on that in the county right now. And had heard some ideas last night. But let's do another go around. Give us anything that you haven't said that you'd like to say. And if you'd like to address any of those, go ahead. And we haven't heard from you in a long time, Drake. Let's hear what you got to say.
Well, first of all, I think this is a very eye-opening discussion. Some things I hadn't really thought about or I heard about. And one thing we should really commend all the teachers, social workers, principals, anybody who's really been helping or on the front lines during COVID, especially our healthcare workers, because it's been a lot for everybody. But to answer some of the questions, to the children who can't learn from a screen, someone said, Google Meets. At least for high school, I can say that the teachers do Google Meets. We have probably about per class, maybe 2 to 3 per class a week, depending on the A day, B day schedule. So they are engaging in that. It's not just paperwork. That's just from the high school perspective. I don't know if they're doing the same thing in middle schools and elementary school, but once again, if you don't have internet access or Chromebook access, it's not working. And then I just want to touch on the family choice to open schools. Well, school opening, that's going to be a very big thing on the school board. I'm looking forward to that conversation. So that could be a viable solution, but once again, we have to look at all our options. And then the last thing I want to touch on is the partnerships for delivery meals. They partner with big organizations. But I think one thing we can also do is partner with the smaller organizations. And the organizations I'm talking about are the churches. County Executive Pittman said, the most biggest influencer in our communities are the schools. But if schools are number one, this number two would be the houses of worship, churches, mosques, and synagogues. And I think there are a number of those, and they all have volunteers, like Ms. Downs said, that are ready to work. So I think we should just really give them an opportunity to serve the community like they have been doing in the past. So I think there's a partnership with the churches to maybe deliver food to those that are underserved or just aren't getting the food or aren't getting the information. It would be a great thing to do.
Great. You're wise for your age, I gotta say. After last night, somebody told me they want to vote for you for president. But all right, President Leon.
All right, well, thank you. So actually, one of the things I wanted to address also is the Google Meet. So I'm glad that Drake's acknowledged that it's happening in high schools, but it's happening in all levels. Middle schools, elementary schools, kindergarten, they're doing, if you can imagine trying to do a Google Meet with 5-year-olds and even our preschool or pre-kindergarten teachers who are doing with 4-year-olds, I can only imagine how that works, because it's I hear stories in their adventure. But the advantage of doing those Google Meets is also they're touching base on the emotional, mental health of their students. Getting them time to also connect with each other is a real value to that. So they are doing that as well. The other part that I heard in there was about asking about the frequency of students logging in. I, of course, don't have that data. However, one of the things I know can be a barrier for students is if they don't have multiple devices, but they have several siblings, that also limits some of the time that they can log in. And I do really commend the school system for the amount of devices that they've been able to hand out in these 2 months. But as we're moving forward, if we continue on this, we really do have to look at those families that are going to need multiple devices because they might have 2, 3, 4 kids in the family that can't all get into a classroom at the same time. So that's something that I think we need to look at. And the other thing I want to say that we're doing at the Teachers Association, I know the school system's already thinking about reopening schools and they're going to be doing lots of work groups. We formed our own work group and we've actually met one time already. And we have teachers and educators from the wide spectrum of our system, not just classroom teachers. We have ELL teachers, we have school psychologists, early childhood, special education teachers who are in either the high schools, middle schools, or our special centers. And they're all actually some of the ideas you were talking about. They've been looking at those because it is going to be very complicated on how we're able to get which students in at what time and how we're going to be able to really provide them the services because with our special education students, they have IEPs, they're individual education plans for a reason. There's that individual piece that needs to happen. And so those are all considerations that are monumental, but they're so important for our students. And that's what we're looking at.
Thanks. Thanks, Russell. Jess has been itching. All right.
No, I just move a lot. But I think, everything that both Russell and Drake said, and Drake, I wanted to make sure that you knew, particularly to spread the word among the high school. I know the community college was on the last town hall about education, but they have a lot of resources that they can offer the high schoolers, like scholarships and classes and laptops and things. So both for Drake, but just in general, I think that's something we need to make sure that we're having that discussion and taking advantage of those resources. I think in general, like Beryl was saying, the resources are there. And part of it is communication. How are we communicating what we need to get? So when we are handing out Chromebooks and checking for internet, how is that communication handled? And I know some of you have been on some emails that I've written about the fact that communication, that we need to, and I think this is actually part of the whole thing. You work for the most at-risk families, right? And you try to make sure if you work, and my cousin's elementary school principal in another county in the state, and we were talking about the differences between the two counties, and he made this statement when we first started talking about it, that they went for the most at-risk students, and by making sure that the most at-risk students had computers, had internet, could be communicated with, had a way to contact their principals, had a way for the principals to contact them. Phone numbers were given because not everybody has access to the internet on their phone. Not everybody receives email. A large part of our most disadvantaged families don't use email or don't have access to email. And we can't, have a school system that relies on email to communicate to families if they're not receiving emails. And by accessing, by focusing on the most at risk and the most disadvantaged families, you create a net that then captures everything. Whereas if you start in the middle, then you sort of have to go down and try to grab and pull everyone else along. And that is never going to work because you're always going to have people along the way. And so, I think that within the county school system, we really need to focus on starting at the bottom with that net and then going. And I think what Beryl said as well in terms of, resources, that was one of the things in the East community. Most of our families who rely on the free and reduced meals and who really need those, they live almost a mile from the school. And they're not going to send second graders to walk a mile to the school and a mile back in a pandemic to pick up meals, right? If the parents can go, that's great. But if the parents are working and they can take off work and pick up the meals, but they can't do that because they have to go back and get the children. It's the same thing. If we could have just had one of the mobile food trucks that was somewhere else at 12:30 when they finish there, come to President and Madison Street and deliver more food there, we would have caught those people better, right? So I think that that's a really important thing. I have to say that, so I'm really involved on Facebook, too much time on Facebook, but I spend a lot of time trying to capture the, interacting with people and learning about and hearing what people have to say about a number of different things. And the Google Meets are something, we are incredibly lucky in our school that our teachers are doing Google Meets 5 days a week. And for elementary school, that's really important because not every child can get on a Google Meet 5 days a week. But if there are 5 Google Meets a week, then at least they might be able to get on once a week and connect with those teachers. And I know that, and I know it's hard. I know that teachers are juggling having only one computer and they have a spouse at home who also needs a computer, and that's whole thing, technology for the teachers is an issue as well. And they have children at home and that, but making sure that we are, especially in the elementary school level, where that interaction, that one-on-one interaction, or that at least screen time interaction is so important, having more Google Meets rather than less, more face-to-face, really. I mean, I watch my kindergartner and my second grader, and they need that connection. And some kids don't like it, but if they get on there, they at least get something. And then the one-to-one computers. I can't imagine if we didn't have the resources with 4 children in school, if we didn't have the resource that we had and friends who lent us computers before, fortunately, anyway, we didn't have those. I can't imagine doing it with not 4 computers. I mean, when we started this, we had 1 computer for our children, and my husband and I each have a computer. I work from home, but so therefore my kids couldn't use my computer, and we had 1 computer for all 4 children. And there's just no way. My kids are they're on their computers from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m., except for lunch and a little recess break that we do, and they're working, and all students should be able to spend as much time as they need to work. They shouldn't have to juggle, well, Joe needs the computer now because he has a meet, so I can't do the work that I'm working on. And, that is just really important,
Right.
no matter what it looks like going forwards.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it really is good to hear from somebody who's got the kids at home dealing with this stuff. Makes it real. Burl. It's pronounced Beryl or Burl? Burl. I know a Burl, so I'm used to saying that. You're still on mute. There you go.
My dad says Burl, my mom says Beryl. So,
all right.
But I read a quote that I want to share with you that could drive us in all of this. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate all that you're doing. I hope, Kay, that you keep this group together and that it just keeps moving and we keep doing it. One of the things that I did want to bring up was summer enrichment camps. We have a group that Friends of Stanton Center that normally sends 50 kids to camp every year, the summer enrichment camps. Because the public schools are closed, we're not going to be able to do that. So what will those kids do? And what can we do? So I'd love to talk about that because they need something. They need something. So let's keep that out there. But I am available. I am flexible. I will work and I will bring the muscle and bring all of the groups to the table. But let's just keep it going. And I think, again, when we look at the families who are struggling during the regular situation, non-pandemic, let's just make sure that we're reaching out to them. The other question, are we feeding through the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there've been conversations about how to pay for it, but it's going to it's got to happen, and it will happen. So
again, I'm going to say this, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. There should not be any hungry people in Anne Arundel County. Nobody is starving. There's so much food being given out. I've worked with these food giveaways, and it's more food than people would buy. And I understand that we need to get it and go home, but the food, it's getting the resources to the right people. And we've got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Those mobile trucks need to be mobile.
Yeah. It's food first, housing second. We can't let people become homeless in this thing either. And that's where we're putting our money first.
Well, that was my other job. I'm also a commissioner for the County Housing Commission. So that's my other job. I have.
All right, taking on all taking on all the toughest challenges there are. All right.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right,
It's tough.
let's keep moving here. Sean, Dr. Ashworth, what else have you got for us? You want to close us up with some
So like
ideas?
Burrow, I was gonna end with a quote as well. You know, collaboration allows us to know more than what we are capable of knowing by ourselves. And so this group and many of the other groups that I know exist, we're learning from each other in this new normal. And
oh, you got muted. How'd that happen?
I don't know.
Now
They
you're
didn't want
back.
me to say
Okay.
what I wanted to say. I was going to address the Chromebooks. Just so you know, Title I office actually distributed additional Chromebooks this last week to families. And we are looking at families now who have 3 to 4 children in the family and distributing Chromebooks to those families. Dr. Kay and our group talked about looking at those families who are not in our Title I schools and addressing those families. So that's happening. I also know that our deputy superintendent, Dr. McMahon, tomorrow during the board meeting will begin talking about the summer school plan and what that will look like. I am aware that the leaders in our school system have already begun to talk about what does reopening look like. Will it be totally online? Will it be hybrid? Focusing in on our early learners for elementary. So we absolutely have begun those conversations. And, hopefully, again, as we continue, all of you and all of our Facebook listeners and folks, our resources out there will be calling Dr. Alato and saying, how can I help? And hopefully the system, us, Anne Arundel County Public Schools, will open the door widely and allow everyone to come in and help. And, I'm always about the bureaucracy. If we could just minimize the bureaucracy, we could get this work done. We could get it done and get it done well and right.
Yep, let's cut some red tape. All right, Lori.
Yeah, so I'm going to echo everything, Sean, that I did want to mention. There was a question about training for school counselors. And so I did want to mention that Ryan Boglin, I just texted him real quick to see what professional development was going to be looking like for all of our student support services, that school counselors, school psychologists, our people personnel workers, our school social workers. And he said that there would be ongoing support and professional development for all student services staff as we look at how we're going to be reopening. So we've also, we'll be partnering with the Office of Professional Development, who's asked us to work with them to help do some trainings as teachers are also returning as well. So that's definitely there, and we're going to be in the planning stages with them to make sure that we get training and that we're helping to train others as we return. So.
Great. And Dr. K.
The other Dr. K.
Yep. We have 2 Dr. Ks.
Yeah, we do. First, I want to thank all the panelists for sharing your perspectives. This was a rich conversation, and especially the community members who highlight the challenges that our families are facing. I always love to hear about challenges, even though it breaks my heart, but we can't fix what we don't know about. And so there are always opportunities. So thank you, and continue to bring those forward. And I look forward to continued conversations. The second thing is that I did promise Dr. Sean and Lori that we would not just have another meeting just to meet. So I do expect that we will have some outcomes. And I've been described as someone who does like to get some things done. So my hope is that the school system, the administration will see this as some wins and really help us to break down the box and get out the box and do some things very differently. So I'll continue to pursue that with them. As far as food goes, you know what, there are resources out there, and sometimes we know that some people don't know where to go for the resources. So within the next week or so, we will have a food line. So it will be a government food line that people can call for the county, and we'll have people that answer the phone, and they'll do an assessment with the callers to find out what the best program is. We have some emergency boxes that we just procured from Maryland Food Bank. And so if we have families, you know, at 10 o'clock at night or Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, and they're like, look, we ran out of food. We went to the pantries and we were not able to get any. We will figure out how to get food to them. So this food line is going to be instrumental. And as soon as we have that number and it's alive, we're staffing it now. We'll get those numbers out to you so you guys can spread it widely. The last thing I wanted to say about the volunteers is that the faith-based organizations are our best friends. I mean, they are front and center helping us. Our nonprofits have been working double time, triple time with us to make sure that we are responding to this emergency in a way that helps everyone, and they are ringing the bells. When it doesn't work, we're hearing from them. This is not working. We need additional supplies. We need resources. We need your help. And we've been trying to respond to them and coordinate so that we're getting it done. So we continue to do that. If you want to volunteer and you are not able to connect with a nonprofit and you're not able to connect with a faith-based organization, I encourage you to contact the Office of Emergency Management, and that's at 410-222-0600. And that's to the Office of Emergency Management. They have a call center, and they will take the information for volunteers and help them navigate where we need them. We've got some new systems that we're setting up, so we will be hopefully getting in touch with volunteers that may not have been used previously. So if you have an interest or want to pass that information along, do that, because sometimes we have a need and sometimes it will go away and then we'll have another need. So it's an ebb and a flow. So that's what I want to close with. I just want to thank everyone. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you. And I'll just say really quickly that, and I've been saying this all along through this whole pandemic, that as bad as it is, I really think it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity because the weaknesses of our country and the way we've set up our economy and the way we've set up our government are being laid bare. And it's really clear to everybody now that people who've been living paycheck to paycheck are now in a position where it just isn't working. And so I think there's enough political support to be able to address issues that we couldn't address before. And the fact that we have this federal money here for a short time to be able to fill some of those gaps in the safety net is going to show people that they're going to want to continue that work, continue those programs, and that can be done. So it really is an opportunity to shift the focus of government back to serving the most vulnerable people and meeting people's needs so that we can heal this community and this country and move forward in a much more equitable, fair way. So I'm pretty inspired about the opportunities we have, and want to thank all of you and everybody out there who's been working so hard to get us through this, because I think we're going to build back better. Sounds kind of cliche, but you know, really, I believe it's true. So thank you, everybody, for helping out.